Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I decided to start a new reading vlog. Now, I've already done one on my way to my holiday destination. It's already uploaded on the channel and I'll link it to this video so you can have a look if you're interested in that one. But I'm back and I'm really excited to try another one. For this reading vlog, I selected two books. They're different genres, so hopefully I'll not be in a reading slump after this one. But the first one is The Sword of Kaigen by Wang. You've probably already heard about this one already, especially if you are a fantasy reader, because it's been quite a treasure book, let's say, among the fantasy community. Heard so many amazing things about this book. I'm pretty excited to actually start and give it a go. But I think this book is about a family. They live in Kaiganese Empire, and I think there is a threat of an invasion. And the mother is hiding her violent past and trying to reconcile it with her present life, let's say. And I think it's supposed to explore topics of nationalism, brutality of war, and personal regrets and how people are dealing with certain issues. So it's a pretty chunky one. But yes, let's see how it will go. And the second one that I'm planning to read this month during this reading vlog is Stay True by Hua Hsu. I think it's a winner of the Pulitzer Prize in the memoir section. Well, it's a pretty high recommendation, I would say. I have very elevated expectations because of this fact, to be honest. But I think it's a memoir on friendship. I think the author is reminiscing on his friendship during his student years with another Asian student, Ken, that unfortunately died 3 years after they started their friendship, and how this death and how this friendship affected the author, Hua Hsu, for the rest of his life. But yes, that's my plans, and let's see how it will go. I will post an update soon. See you. With a short update on my reading. Actually, this weekend I went for a very nice hike. I added some videos from this hike just before this update. I really hope you liked it. It was very nice. It was sort of like frosty weather. It was very beautiful. I was really hoping for some snow as well, but well, I mean, we can't get everything. It was very beautiful regardless. I really enjoyed it. So, let's get back to our reading. I first started reading The Sword of Kaigen. I on the 8th chapter at the moment, so there is a bit of a progress here happening. It's quite a chunker, but I'm going through it slowly, maybe a bit slower than I would like to, but regardless, we are here to enjoy it. So now we actually see that there is some geopolitical tension possibly happening in the background, and there is a possibility of an invasion. So as I pointed out before, we are following two characters, Misaki and Mamoru. Mamoru is Misaki's son, and it's very interesting because we actually get some time jumps to Misaki's history when she was an adolescent herself, and she was studying in an academy just before she was married off. And it's very interesting because her past and her present are so different. It's almost like you're reading about two different characters, and you can see how her past and present shape the way she is at the moment. And I found it very interesting, realistic, and frustrating at the same time. I'll try to explain you why. Because the psychological transformation that Misaki is going through is very believable when we see that all these small peckings, everyday insults, and brainwashing are really capable of changing a person entirely, shaping them and molding the way that people are intended them to be. And what I found really frustrating, that even though Misaki realizes it, she's subconsciously aware of it, and sometimes she stops herself mentally and she thinks about it. But sometimes it's so difficult for her to overcome the pattern of behavior. So in some situations, she keeps parroting and just regurgitating the same phrases and the same truths that she's been told her entire adult life, just because they're so deeply ingrained in her. And it's very difficult for her to break the cycle and be more genuine, be more herself, because she was already pretty much molded in this rigid and submissive shape that her family wants her to be. That's why I found it a little bit frustrating sometimes when I see it's happening. But at the same time, you feel such a sense of liberation when she actually manages to break through it and actually show her true colors. I find it really beautiful. And at the same time, Mamoru is going through his own transformation because he was the product of this society. He was born in it. He was told this sort of legend that perpetuated by his family, by his government. All his life, he was hearing one version of the truth. And at some point, he realizes that maybe it's not necessarily fully true and it's not really real. And this realization just shatters his world, and obviously he's very distressed. He doesn't know how to grapple with this knowledge, and he behaves sometimes in a very aggressive way just because he's scared and he doesn't know what to do about it. He's panicking. And another thing I wanted to mention about this book, actually, if you're a fan of this modern time set Asian fantasy stories, if for instance you really enjoyed Jade Legacy trilogy, I would highly recommend this one. And to be honest, I'm in two minds about this comparison because I personally finished the Jade trilogy and I didn't really like it so much. I know it's very controversial. I think it's one of the most popular books, and lots of booktubers are absolutely raving about it. It was pretty much everywhere. Everyone talks about it. But I'm one of these people who really didn't appreciate it that much. I'm not saying it's a bad trilogy, but it just unfortunately didn't really work for me in certain aspects. And what I found very exciting actually about the Sword of Kaigen, I feel that this book manages to achieve what the Jade trilogy didn't manage to achieve for me. So what I'm trying to tell you here is, even though these books are very different in their premises, but there are certain similarities. So Jade Trilogy and the Soul of Kaigen are both based in this fictionalized Asian society in Asian countries, but it's a modern society. But at the same time, they're set in very traditional society. And we're following our protagonists who are trying to find their place in this traditional society, and sometimes it doesn't really work for them, and they're trying to maybe mold themselves in order to fit in, and they're trying to find some consolation, and we're following their adventures, let's say. But in which sense I think Swords of Kaigen works better for me. I never managed to get emotionally invested into characters in the Jade trilogy. So I always found the description of characters and character interactions very dry in the Jade trilogy. And I can't say the same about Sword of Kaigen. With Sword of Kaigen, I feel like I am getting very emotionally invested since the beginning. They're very relatable. It's easy to understand them. And sometimes you get very frustrated about their actions and their faults, and you want them to succeed and you want to see their self growth. I never really felt the same way about the Jade trilogy characters. And another thing I think works better in the Soul of Kaigen is data dumps. I found data dumps in the Jade trilogy so annoying. It just really didn't work for me because it was always breaking the narrative, breaking the story for me, and we were just having these huge chunks of some information about the law, about the history of the country, about mythology, everything. And it's great. I think it's great for world building, but the way it was integrated, every time we get something emotional and something exciting happening, there is a huge section about some background information of it. It was always pulling me out of the story, and it was always preventing me from getting emotionally attached to the story and to the characters. So this thing didn't really work for me. And I think world building is integrated in a much more flawless way in the Soul of Kaigen. I think it's just more natural. It doesn't break the narrative. It's not overwhelming. We don't really have this huge chunks of information. There is just one point in the university where Mamoru is studying, but that's pretty much it. And it wasn't really that grating as for me. The rest of the time, it's very, very flawlessly integrated, and I don't feel that I'm being pulled out of the story. So, yes, if you're one of these people who didn't really appreciate Jade City, Jade Legacy trilogy, however you call it, you may try this one, and I think this one maybe will work better for you. But obviously, it's very early to talk about it because I'm literally like on page, what, 165? There is still a lot to go, but that's my thoughts for now. Let's see how it will go next. See you. Time for my final update on the Soul of Kaigen. I managed to finish this book. I'm really sorry I didn't really provide more updates during my reading, but to be honest, the second part of the book was so gripping. I was so engaged. I couldn't really stop reading it. I just really wanted to finish it and let you know what I think about this book. As I already mentioned, I think I really like it, and I personally find it better in terms of characterization, and I'm not sure, it sounds like a blasphemy to be honest, but I personally feel that the world building is potentially better than in Greenbone Saga. I know it's very weird thing to say, and as I already said, that I don't really think that this fantasy novels are entirely comparable, just based on the scope of it, even just because the Greenbone Saga is a 3 books and this one is actually a standalone. So, but I think for a standalone, the author did an amazing job in terms of world building. In terms of characters, I am happy to say that I was very emotionally invested in their lives, in these characters, and I really, really enjoy following these people. They are not perfect, they are flawed, but they're very interesting. And during reading the second part of the book, I kept thinking about Misaki's husband, to be honest, because he's described as a very distant, cold, and frigid person. And let me know if you had similar thoughts while reading it. But I felt that he is this amazing warrior because of the way he is. People say sometimes that corporate CEOs may be CEOs just because sometimes they're not very pleasant people and they're willing to do certain things that other people aren't. And I had very similar feelings while reading about Misaki's husband, to be honest, because I felt he's this superior, one of the best warriors, just because of his personality and the way he is. And probably if we change something about his personality, maybe he will not make such a great warrior after all. So I don't know, let me know what you think about it, but I just couldn't stop actually thinking about it. Another thing that I really liked in terms of characterization, that all the characters had to fight their own demons. I feel it's a very strong theme in this book when characters have to embrace and accept certain qualities and certain events and certain things in their lives and just try to work with it and find a way forward, as if what you are fighting for, you have to find this goal and you have to find this backbone and try to sort of reconcile everything that you have in the past or in the present, certain difficulties, let's say, and just find a way to embrace your life and become a better human being and move forward. I found it very interesting theme, and I think this is the main theme of the book, to be honest, because it is fair that we are facing quite an interesting government structure. It's a nationalistic government. People pretty much being fed propaganda, and all the information potentially that they receive from the government is false, and people have to face this fact and still find their way to live in this environment and to survive there. But at the same time, I feel it was sort of like a backdrop to the main of the story, the personal struggles of the characters. I don't really think it was sort of explored fully enough and to the same scale as the personal struggles of the characters that I would feel that these are equal themes. For me, it just felt like a backdrop to the main story, which is, I'm not sure, I think it would be nice to actually have more exploration in terms of government structure and this totalitarian regime and how people live there. But I'm not sure it could be potentially adequately performed just in a standalone book, because it would be probably bloated to an enormous size, and I'm not sure it would be equally great, let's say. Another thing that I potentially probably didn't like, it is one sort of thing that happened pretty much at the end of the book. I didn't feel it was fully resolved. I don't really want to give you any spoilers if you haven't read this book, because I would recommend you reading it. But I had a strong feeling that the author put this thing there, this thing that happened there, and they probably had an idea how to resolve it, or maybe they just like had a beginning of an idea how to resolve it in the book, but didn't manage fully do it, and it was just wrap up in a very rushed way, and I didn't feel we had a logical sort of resolution. And at the same time, I feel there is still a hint of a potential second book, even though it's marketed as a standalone. But reading the last chapter, I had a very, very strong feeling that the author was sort of laying a foundation for a potentially second book. Let me know if you had the same feeling. I don't know. But actually, I wouldn't mind reading a second book. I think it would be an interesting addition to the world building, because if we follow the line that the author proposed in the last chapter, let's say, we potentially would have to leave the Kaigenese Empire, the Sword of Kaigen, this area in the Kaigenese Empire, and actually venture outside and to go to different countries. It would enlarge the scope, and it could potentially become a very great fantasy series, but I'm not sure what you think about it. If you read it, maybe comment, but please don't put spoilers, just maybe if you agree or disagree with me. But if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's very, very entertaining. I think characterization is amazing. World building is very, very solid, very, very good, but at the same time, I feel sort of government, totalitarian government regime theme was sort of a backdrop. I would like it to be explored a bit deeper, but do let me know what you think about it. Okay, done with this one. I'm very proud of myself. I really enjoyed it, and it's quite a chunker. If you watched my year-end sort of wrap-up videos, I mentioned at some point that I am trying to move away from lots of fantasy chunkers, just not to give me reading slump, but this one will not give you a reading slump. It is very, very good, very good. Perfect? No, it's not perfect, but very close to it. Highly recommended. Okay. Planning to start reading this one, Stay True. I'm very excited about this, and as I already mentioned, it's a winner of Pulitzer Prize in memoir category, so it must be good. I have very high expectations. I really hope I will actually achieve the same level of enjoyment on par with my expectations, but I'll give you an update shortly. See you. I think it's time for my final reading update of this reading blog. I finally managed to finish Stay True by Hua Hsu. And what I actually think about this book. To be honest, it was a bit of a struggle for me. I was really excited going into this book. As I mentioned before, this is a Pulitzer Prize winner in memoir category. It was the first reason for me to pick it up. And at the same time, the theme of this memoir really intrigued it, because it was focused on the friendship and the lost friendship, because the author was focusing on his short friendship with his student days friend Ken, who unfortunately passed away 3 years after they became friends. And the author was reminiscing on this friendship and how Ken's passing affected him emotionally, and what sort of impact it had on his life. So I was really excited actually to get into this book, but unfortunately it took me pretty much the same time to finish this book as the Sword of Kaigen. And the reason why it happened, I just at some point I just couldn't force myself to read it. It was a struggle, to be honest. But anyway, let's actually talk about the book, and I'll try to explain you what worked and what didn't work for me personally. In the beginning of the book, I think about 30, 40 first pages, we are pretty much focused on Hua Hsu's parents, who immigrated from Taiwan as students. They came to the US to study, to look for a better life, let's say. They came separately, they didn't know each other, and at some point they met and formed a family. So this first portion of the book is focused on them when Hua Hsu wasn't even in the picture. So we can see all the struggles. There are lots of comments on integration in the society, of migrants' integration, and the difference in culture and how it was to be an Asian immigrant at the time in the United States. I found this commentaries very interesting. I think this is one of the strongest parts of the book for me personally. I found it very fascinating, and to see all these cultural differences between different people. But after that, we actually moved to the point when Hua Hsu was born. He was born in 1977, and we followed his family for some time. How they were moving from state to state, and they ended up in South California. And the main, actually, let's say, focus or plot of the book starts, I think, from the page around 40, 50, when we see that Hua Hsu enrolls in the university and he starts his student life, and how he starts acclimatizing in this new environment, how he starts finding friends. To be honest, personally, I would really like to have actually more exposure into Hua Hsu's life and his relationship with parents. The biggest reason why I didn't really vibe with the book, why I didn't enjoy it fully, I felt that the book was pretty much emotionally disconnected from the author. It felt like an account of things that happen, instead of actually author trying to build this emotional connection with people. Like, for instance, in the beginning of the book, where we're focusing on Hua Hsu's family, I didn't feel that we actually explored family relationship. We pretty much don't know anything about his mother. We know that she came from Taiwan, what she was doing, what she was studying, but we don't know her as a person. We don't know anything about his relationship with his mother. The situation with his father is slightly different, but not much, I would say, because at some point his father moves back to Taiwan, and Hua Hsu and his father started communicating via fax, just because it was the most convenient and cheapest way at the time. They were sending messages to each other and discussing books and their thoughts and music. I didn't really feel we really know much about his family in their personal relationship between family members. I found it such an unexplored area of the book, and I felt it's such a shame, to be honest, because it was just like a backdrop, let's say, for his life in the beginning of the book. We literally don't have any knowledge of a relationship between them. But I think this emotional disconnect was playing the book pretty much from the beginning till the end. But anyway, after this first section of the book, we are moving to Hua Hsu's student life, how he's trying to start his new life in the university, find friends, find his place there as a young man. And I found it very peculiar, to be honest, because even in the beginning of the book and throughout the book, I always felt that the author was pulling too much, let's say, reader's attention to himself. I always felt that he was really trying to be understood rather than trying to convey a story. It read to me as some sort of a personal diary or personality diary, to put it in a better way, when a person is really trying to explain their personality rather than to tell a story. During his school years and during his university years, I felt he was always creating this persona, showing himself in a certain way, of some sort of an edgy, not really mainstream person. And I found it a little bit forced. And throughout the book, I always felt that the author sort of operates in this mode still. I know it sounds very harsh because after reading this book, I truly believe that Hua Hsu is a very talented author and that the writing is very good. It is, I would say, competent. It is very, very good. At times, it literally felt like very competent writing for the sake of it. As if the author was trying to present a certain picture of himself as an intellectual person, slightly different from the mainstream, instead of trying to actually focus on what is important in the book, what the subject of the book is. And I think it's just a very unfocused attitude. And I really wish that the author found strength in himself to actually talk about important things and not to focus on himself too much. But during his university years, Hua Hsu met Ken. He didn't really like him in the beginning. He felt that Ken is one of these golden boys, good looking, smart, very mainstream. He didn't really appreciate his musical taste. He just felt that they would never be friends. But at some point, they found some common ground and they became friends. And after that, we followed their friendship. But again, I felt this emotional disconnect, to be honest, because in the book it's written that they're friends. They discuss things, they meet, they do some projects together, and you see that they have regular interactions, let's say. But I feel that after reading this book, I still don't know much about Ken as a person. I have this picture of this person in my head that was created by this book. This is a very mainstream person, let's say, very smart, good looking, fraternity guy. He likes certain music. He likes girls, let's say. I guess like many guys of that age. But that's it. I don't really have any notion of his likes, dislikes on a more deeper level. I don't know his personality quirks, his, let's say, deep desires, what stressed him, what made him happy. I don't feel that I know this person. And for the same reason, I don't feel that I actually grasp the essence of this friendship. I don't feel this friendship. I feel that this is the continuation of this emotional disconnection, let's say, for me in this book. There are two phrases in this book that I feel really explain what I'm trying to tell you, probably in a very rambling way. One phrase is somewhere in the middle of the book. I don't remember probably word to word, but it was something like the friendship is a desire to know rather than to be known. And I think this is like a perfect explanation to what was actually happening, because when this phrase was mentioned first time, Hua Hsu actually admits that he always thought that is the opposite way, that the friendship is actually desire to be known. And I feel that the author is desperately trying to be known in this book rather than to know. That's why we always feel that there is this emotional disconnect with people in the book, and we don't really know much about them. We have pretty good picture about Hua Hsu, but not about other people or connections between them. And the second phrase is on the last page of the book. And I think for me personally, this is a perfect illustration how I felt reading this book. It says, I was a legendary self-involved person. This is my, let's say, main complaint about this book. I really wished the author was a little bit less self-involved and be more focused on what he's trying to say. I hope you like this review. I know that probably it was a bit negative, and probably if you don't really mind this sort of things, I would still recommend it. I mean, it won a Pulitzer Prize in memoir. Who am I to argue with that? but this was my opinion, very subjective, as all of our opinions are. But anyway, I really hope you like this reading vlog, and I'll see you soon. Bye.